Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our Thursday lectures with EducationUSA Ukraine. My name is Katerina Alexandruk. I'm the outreach coordinator for the EducationUSA Ukraine. And I am welcoming all of you here. And today, our topic, I think, will be very useful to those of you who are planning to apply for bachelor's degree. And as of now, you probably already know that you will need to fill out forms for each specific university that you pre-selected, that you have in your list. And it may take some time, some efforts, but there is a tool actually that can help you to make it more efficient and to fill out one form and to apply to a few universities at the same time. It calls the Common Application platform, and we have a guest today who will be sharing his expertise, his information about the Common Application platform and how we can use it. And I am pleased to introduce our speaker, Marco Chavez, the Senior Assistant Director at the Ohio State University. And as usual, you are welcome to put your questions in the chat box, and we will get back to all of your questions at the end of the presentation, at the end of the webinar, and we will try our best to answer all of your questions. So Marco, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Let me just bring up my title so everybody can see who I am. So as Ms. Caterina mentioned, my name is Marco Chavez, and I'm with the Ohio State University. I have been here for a little bit over 15 years, and I work in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. So this is the office that receives all of the applications for bachelor's degree programs. So for students that are coming directly out of secondary school or students that are wanting to transfer from another university, whoever they might be, I work in the office that receives all of these documents. As Ms. Caterina mentioned, part of the documents that we receive is the actual application form, which I'll be speaking to you about today, specifically the form called the Common Application. We receive about 60,000 of these applications every year, so it's a lot of reading that we do, and so I'm very familiar with the form, and I hope to share some of that familiarity with you. I'm only going to speak for about 20-30 minutes max. I know a lot of especially in the past year, we have a lot of screen time, so I want to minimize that screen time as much as possible for you. But again, I do want you to ask your questions. Ask your questions at any time during the presentation, but I won't actually address your questions until I'm finished covering the Common Application. So again, the Common Application is a form that is used to tell universities that you're interested in them, that you're wishing to apply, that you're wishing to enter. And this form, one form, can be used to apply to about 1,000, close to 1,000 universities, mainly in the US, but increasingly around the world. So there are some universities in Europe, Canada, other countries that use the Common Application. So it's not just restricted to the US. So that's something for you to keep in mind. So with that, let's head on over to the Common Application. I'm going to stop sharing my window for just a second so that we can transition over to that application form. The first thing you want to do is go to commonapp.org. And you can just do a search of it, Common Application, and it'll bring you to this page. If you notice on the top right-hand corner, you can create an account. This will be your account, so make sure that when you create the account that you jot down the information that you put in there so that you don't forget later on when you're trying to log back in. So I mentioned that the Common Application is used to apply to many institutions, but there's a thing. You can apply as a first-year student, meaning that you're still in secondary and you wish to continue on to your first time at university, or some institutions, you can use the Common Application to apply as a transfer student, meaning you want to leave your current university and go to a different university. So depending on what you want to do, that's the type of account that you would want to create right here. So you'll create your account by clicking on one of these two tabs. And then once you have your login information, here, this white button in the top right, that's where you'll actually sign in. And so let's sign in. I've created an account beforehand. So give me a second while I type that information in here. And I encourage all of you to create an account after you leave here today. And that way, you'll be able to come back in here and see what the Common Application is all about. You'll be able to play around and see in more detail all the questions. As you might have guessed as well, I am presenting from home, so just warning you that you might hear background noises. You might hear children, cats, construction, those sorts of things. So I apologize in advance. When you log into the Common Application, you're going to see a few things. It can seem overwhelming at first, but let me explain what it is. So along the top, you'll see your dashboard, my colleges, Common App, college search, financial aid resources. So we won't go into all of them today because I want to concentrate on the actual application. But to give you some background, you use the college search tab to find universities. You can narrow it down by location, type of institution, etc. And then you flag those universities, you mark them, those that you think you might be interested in, and then they appear under your colleges. I only have the Ohio State University here. I'm only applying to that institution. Your dashboard kind of gives you an overview of all of your applications. But the actual form itself is listed here where you click on Common Application. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on U.S. institutions. So we ask you a lot of questions on the application. And the reason we do that is because we want to see if you are a good match for us. So it's not just a matter of, oh, this person is interested. Great, we're happy to have them. No, we want to see that based on your family history, based on your activities, on the type of school that you attend, if you're a good match for us. And of course, grades and all of that as well. So that's why we ask a lot of questions. We have a lot of U.S. institutions have what is called a holistic review process. And that means that we look at the whole person. So it's not just about your grades or an exam score. It's about your entire self. And that's why the application is very important. So now let me guide you through this application. When you click at the top on the Common Application tab, the application appears, and then all these tabs on the left-hand side will appear as well. And so the different sections are the profile, which is basically information about you. So let's go through that. You'll have personal information, so your name, your age, where you live. So we want to know your address as well, your contact details, demographics, what languages you speak, what citizen are you a country of? So, you know, are you a citizen of Ukraine or a different country? Those sorts of things. Again, it's important for us to know so that we can make an accurate admissions decision. So this is probably the simplest part. It's just information about yourself that you should already know. And then we ask you about your family. So who do you live with? Are your parents married? Are they both living in the same household as you? For those of you that are a little bit older, do you have any children? And so do you have brothers or sisters perhaps that have already gone on to college or university? So in this section, some things that you'll want to keep in mind is that we do ask you about your parents' occupation and their educational level. So why do we want to know about your parents? Because it allows us to know more about you. So research shows that those of us that have parents who went on to university are more likely to succeed and go on to university ourselves. So a lot of times universities want to increase access to those who've never had a parent go on to university. So that lets us know that if you're a first generation university student, we might give you extra consideration. Again, it varies from university to university, but that's why we ask this question. So make sure that you have this information handy when you're ready to actually complete the form. And then we go on to the education section. We want to know what school you've attended, when you enter that school, what type of school it is, and if you're still there. And then I know some of you may have moved schools, perhaps at the end of year 9, you went to a different institution, or at the end of year 10, you changed to a higher level secondary school. So make sure that you list that here under other secondary schools. We want to know all about your educational history. But what's more important to institutions in the US are your last 4 years. So your final year that you're in now when you're applying, and then your previous 3 full years. That's really what's most important to us at US institutions. We want to know about your grades, or what type of grading system that school has. So we know that different countries, and even within a country, different schools grade differently. So here's your opportunity to let us know a little bit about how your school grades you, and then how many students are in your school, and that sort of thing. So for example, you can see on here, Gpa Scale Reporting. So in this case, this school grades between 1 and 10, but you could always put between 1 and 20, for example, if you're in the French system, or 1 and 5, whatever it might be. So you have options to choose the grading scale that is used at your school. And then you have the opportunity to report what your grades are, the average of your grades here as well. So we want you to report on that as well. Another part of your education is we want to know what your plans are. What career do you want to follow? Do you want to be, for example, in this case, an actor or entertainer? Or, you can select a whole bunch on here. Do you want to be a veterinarian? Do you want to be a physician, a nurse? Whatever the case might be, we want you to tell us. Again, this is important for us to know so that we can kind of see if you're a good fit for our institution. So for example, let's say that your career aspirations are that you want to be a nurse, but you're applying to an arts institution. Let's say Savannah College of Art and Design. They don't have nursing. So they might be, okay, Katerina is selecting as her major accounting, and she says she wants to be a nurse, but this is an art school. Why is she applying here? So, that sort of thing. We want to make sure that you're a good fit for our institution. So that's why we want to know what your career interest is. And we also want to know how far you want to go in that career. So you can select bachelor's, master's, law school, that sort of thing. So these are questions, again, about your education or educational aspirations. And then under testing, just to see if you have taken tests, and then you can report those tests. So I put on here that I've taken the ACT test. Something to keep in mind for those of you that are ready to apply for this fall, if an institution still has an application open, or for fall 2022, is that a lot of institutions are now test optional. What that means is that we're giving you the option to submit a test or not to submit a test. So, for example, at Ohio State, we previously required the SAT or the ACT exam. These are aptitude exams, but because of the pandemic for 2021 and 2022, we're not requiring them. And a lot of institutions are also making that decision. So we're giving you the option to submit those tests or not. Keep in mind, if you don't submit them, or if you do, it doesn't affect whether you would be admitted or not. It's test optional. But you have the option as part of the common application to tell us if you have taken the test. Okay, something that I think is very unique to applying to North American institutions is that we want to know all about your activities. So have you participated in activities in school, outside of school? If so, tell us about that. The reason we're asking that is because at U.S. institutions, we tend to offer a lot of activities outside of the classroom. Most of the time that you spend with us will be outside of the classroom, living in your dormitory, participating in clubs, organizations, attending events on campus. And so because of that, we kind of want to see if you've already had some history of doing that. If you've already been playing football for a couple years or have participated in a chess club or whatever the case might be, we want to know what you've been doing. And for the most part, we like to see students that have been involved, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, whether it's with leisure activities or paid work experience or even unpaid work experience or scholarly activities, like maybe a science competition or a math competition, things like that. Definitely let us know in these activity sections everything that you've done so that we can make the best decision possible. And so you can see on here that the types of activities that we tend to see tend to revolve around art, clubs, being engaged in the community, family responsibilities. Like maybe if you're an older sibling and your parents work outside of the home and you have to take care of your siblings, things like that. Let us know about that. If you have any hobbies or already mentioned, if you participate in sports, we want to know all about what you've been involved in outside of the classroom. And then you have the option of listing the activities down here. And you probably hear a child in the background right now. Sorry about that. And then lastly, the writing, the essay. So most institutions will require you to write an essay, whether you're applying through the common application or submitting an application directly to the institution. So the common application actually gives you some options, 7 options. And so you have 7 options here that you can choose from. And really, there's no right or wrong answer. You can select any essay that you think you can address best and submit that to the institution. We're not looking for any one essay to be answered, and really the answer should be yours. So pick a question, pick a prompt that you can address and you feel that will best explain who you are as a person. So you'll notice the different types of prompts that there are. They deal with a variety of topics. Again, you have 7 options. Any option is the best option, whatever you think is best. So that's the common application. And something I failed to mention is that you'll want to type in the essay here at the bottom. I recommend you type the essay on another document and then copy and paste it to this little window here that you see. But keep in mind that there are word limits. It has to be between 250 words and 650 words. So make sure that that you tell us what you need to tell us in a succinct way. Again, no more than 650 words. As I mentioned, we get 60,000 applications, so that's a lot of reading for us. Okay, so that's the common application on your right. Now, on your left, I'm sorry, with the different sections. Now, you'll have that, and the university will receive all of this information once you click submit and pay the application fee. But some institutions will require you to submit some extra information. So let's take a look, for example, at Ohio State. So it's listed under my colleges here. and I'll open up the Ohio State University. So this is called a supplemental application to the common application. Again, most institutions will have some sort of supplement. So just keep that in mind, that once you're done with the common application, you'll have to answer a few more questions, sometimes an extra essay, sometimes just some questions. So in our case, the application has closed, so you don't have the option of selecting here which term you want to apply for. But if it were open, you would be able to tell us, hey, I want to apply for spring semester, or I want to apply for autumn semester. So that's part of that. Then we ask you other questions. In our case, so like I mentioned, when do you want to begin? Do you want to live on campus? Do you consider yourself to be a member of the LGBT community? Who do you depend on for support? So these different types of questions that we ask at Ohio State, again, is just so that when you arrive on campus, we can place you with correct, appropriate services. We want to know what your major is, a little bit more about family. Are any more of your siblings applying to Ohio State at the same time? A lot of times we have siblings, twins mainly, who apply to Ohio State at the same time. So we want to know that, just so that we can take a look at both of your applications at the same time. So once you finish these extra questions, you'll have the option to review everything and then submit the common application. Again, you'll want to do that for all of your colleges listed here on the left. So you'll finish the Ohio State supplement in this case, and then you'll submit it. Let's say you have another institution, let's say NYU, you'll finish that and then submit it. So make sure that once you submit the common application form, you go to your colleges and submit individually for them so that you can submit that form to your colleges. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'll now take your questions, if there are any.
Thank you, Marcus, very much for the. Okay, I can hear myself, I believe. Thank you so much for the wonderful, let's say, go through process. Well, I do have a couple questions, and we have questions from the audience, and I'll go with the first question from the audience, and then I'll give some like a minute or two for the rest of our audience maybe to think through the questions they might have. So the first question is, good afternoon. In case I want to apply to multiple universities, will any of them see to how many universities I'm applying?
Yeah, so students typically do apply to multiple universities. We recommend that students apply to about 5 institutions so that you choose a couple that maybe are like your dream institutions. And then a few more that maybe are more safe for you, because institutions are different, right? Some have different academic requirements. Some are more stringent, more competitive to be admitted into. But when you submit an application to us, we don't know where else you've applied to. So yeah, we will not know that you've applied to 10 others or 1 other or 0 others or which ones they are at all.
So basically you only see the application applied to you, specifically to the Ohio State University. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for the answer. I also have a question about the financial aid, because our students, many of our students, they are looking for some financial aid from the universities. In case if they want to apply, is there any place in the Common App that includes the questions about the financial aid, or they should be a separate form they need to look for?
Yeah, it's both. So some institutions on the supplemental part of the common application will have questions regarding financial aid. At Ohio State, we don't have that. So we do it automatically. When students apply, we automatically consider students for aid. But some institutions will have questions on the supplement. But also, it's very important that when you've created your list of institutions, of your 2 or 5 or 6 that you're applying to, that you research their websites very carefully. Because on their websites, outside of this common application website, it might have more information about scholarships and about how to apply for them. So to answer your question, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay, so yeah, we encourage then everybody to make sure that you read through all possible information about the application to a specific university. Another question I have, I saw that there is a place where you can indicate your standardized tests that you take an SAT or ACT. I mean, maybe I didn't notice, but is there any place I can show the results, like what is the grade that I received when I passed the SAT test, the ACT test?
You show the results when you submit them officially to the institution. Okay. So this is just letting us know that you took the test, and so it kind of lets us know to expect for those results to arrive
from the testing organization,
directly from the ACT or directly from the College Board. Correct.
Wonderful. Okay, so and let me see if we have more questions from the audience. Not yet so far. And the last question I have is about the. You said there is a place for additional documents that might be required from the university. Like exactly, I know that many universities are looking for recommendation letters, for example. So, what is usually maybe on terms of your university, if I have a recommendation letter from my teacher from a Ukrainian school who actually wrote in Ukrainian, and I want to add it somehow to my common application form, what happens? How can I do that?
Yeah, so let me go back to the application so I can show you. It won't be very helpful, but hopefully you'll get some. Are you able to see the common application?
Yes. Okay. I mean, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay. So here you'll notice on the left it has recommenders.
Mark, we cannot see your screen right now. Okay. I think it just dropped.
Okay. Give me a second. Oh, because I selected this tab. Okay. So
yes, now we can see that.
So over here on the left, under the Ohio State University, has recommenders and FERPA. So this is where you'd be able to select who you want recommenders. But right now I can't do that because on the common application itself, I didn't put my high school information. So once you complete the common application, I didn't complete it all today because it would take longer than the presentation allows. But once you complete the high school information, then you get to this part. If the institution allows for recommendations, not all institutions allow. Ohio State, you can submit it or not. It's really up to you. But here's where you would put the information of the recommender. Then they would get an email saying, Katerina has requested for you to write a letter of recommendation. Please click on this link so that you can go and create a common application account and submit your letter of recommendation. So that's how that would work.
I see. Thank you so much for showing that.
Sure.
Right, we have another question from the audience. If you are learning on IB program, I believe this is International Baccalaureate program at the moment, that you are submitting your application, should you indicate that?
Yeah, so again, going back to the grading scale part of the common application, that's where you'll put that you're out of 7. But once we receive your transcripts, your school records, we'll know that you're in the IB program.
All right. Thank you for the answer. Okay, let's just give a couple moments to again to our listeners and maybe they will have more questions. But anyway, thank you so much, Marcus. Is there any, if you can tell about your university, about the Ohio State University a little bit more to our students, it would be great. About the application probably process. What kind of students you are looking for?
Yeah, definitely. I thank you for the opportunity. So I mentioned we receive a lot of applications every year. And so part of the application, or I should say the entire application, is comprised of the common application form, your high school transcripts, your grades, results, that sort of thing. And that's it. Optional, you can submit tests, SAT or ACT, and optional, you can submit a letter of recommendation. So we take all of that and we read through your activities, we read through your essay. If you submitted the optional test or the optional letter of recommendation, we read through that. And of course, grades, the type of classes you took are the most important thing. So we use all of that, and then we make our decision based on that. We typically admit students who are in the top quarter of their class. So almost 100% of the students that we admit are in the top quarter of their class. And again, I don't want to say what average that is because every school has different averages. But yeah, so if you're an academically competitive student, you're very likely to get admitted to Ohio State.
What about the financial aid? Is it any opportunity for international students to receive a financial aid if they have a great success with academics?
Yes. And so earlier I mentioned that financial aid varies from institution to institution. At Ohio State, international students will need to submit a separate application. So they'll need to apply to the university first, and then they'll need to use their Ohio State account information to submit a separate scholarship application through our financial aid website. And that needs to be done by February 1st, prior to the year that they want to begin. And so we'll take that financial aid application, that scholarship application, and we'll take the admissions application, and we'll make a decision on each of them. So if the student is admitted, then we'll review the scholarship application and then let the student know what their award would be.
Thank you, Marcus. We do have more questions. Thank you so much for the questions. So the next question is, if can you ask a letter of recommendation from a non-English speaking teacher? And I think I'll anticipate also another question. If it's in Ukrainian, should it be translated into English, basically? And yeah.
Yeah, so yes, obviously not all of your teachers would know English necessarily. So yes, the more important part of the letter of recommendation is that it should come from an academic person, preferably a teacher who knows you, who knows what type of work that you perform. And if that teacher doesn't write in English, that's okay. They can write in Ukrainian, and then that letter should be translated. I don't know if you can speak to EducationUSA's translation services. I know they vary from center to center.
But it can be translated by like a professional translator, I believe, and then submitted.
Or even by, like, let's say the history teacher writes a letter in Ukrainian. The English teacher at your school could translate it. That would be fine for Ohio State.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And the next question is, what are some common mistakes made by people who apply using the common application? Wonderful question.
Yeah, that is a great question. The number one mistake that I see is the name is different. So you might have one spelling of your name on the application, a different spelling of your name on your transcripts, on your educational records, a different spelling or variation on your test scores. So, and then an entirely different variation on your passport. So use what's on your passport, and then make sure that that is on all of your documents that you submit to us, so that we can match it and make a quicker decision on your application. Another common mistake is not asking questions. You have a lot of resources as students. The number one resource are the admissions offices of the institutions that you're applying to. Do not hesitate to ask questions of those admissions offices. That's why we're here. We want to know what questions you have, and we want to make sure that you're guided through the application as seamlessly as possible. I know it can be a little bit challenging applying to institutions, but remember that we do this every day, all the time. We see this application thousands of times, so we know what is involved in it. So ask us questions. We welcome your questions. You can always call us, email us, and then you have a great resource in Education USA. They are also very happy to answer your questions about higher education in general in the US and help you as much as possible, or even connect you to admissions offices. I know they have a large network that they work with.
Yeah, thank you so much for the examples. Just good to know. More questions just came to from our audience. Is there any limit of number, like of schools you can apply with the Common App?
No, there's no limit, but keep in mind that you want to apply to universities that are of interest to you, and you'll be paying an application fee for most of them. So, typically that can range from $50 to $100 or more. So something to keep in mind. We don't recommend more than 5 or 6 or so. We want to make sure that you do your research to narrow down which ones are really of interest to you and only apply to those.
By the way, saying about the application fees, we know that many universities sometimes offer fee waivers. If the student does have a fee waiver number, can it be used on the common application form somehow, or how does it work usually?
Yeah, so if an institution gave you a fee waiver, you'll have an opportunity to put it into the supplemental part of the application before you submit it. That's how it works. So instead of putting a credit card number, you will put that fee waiver code.
Wonderful. All right. So the next question, I think it's we can answer. I can answer this as well. Is it possible to apply to US universities from other countries at the same time? So, which is, I think, yes. Marco, if you can add something.
Yeah, so it's really, the world is yours. You can apply to any institution from any country, really. Make sure I keep saying, make sure you find the institutions that are of interest to you and only apply to those. But yeah, you can apply to institutions in different countries. That's not an issue.
Yes, and the most all applications now, they are online applications, so you can do it from any place in the world.
Right.
So the next question: if I have some recommendations from my work in middle school about who I am, what kind of character I have, is it going to help me really for the application?
No. I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we care about your current final year in secondary school and then the previous 3 years, full years. That's really it. And we care more about the quality of the work that you do, not necessarily about your character. So make sure that the recommendation letter that you request, you tell the recommender if they can write about your academic abilities. That's really the best recommendation letters that you can submit, something that addresses your potential for academic growth.
Thank you so much. And what is an approximate time period for application to apply?
That is a great question. So let's assume that you want to begin your university studies in the fall of 2022. So August, September, whenever the university starts, typically applications open a year beforehand. So in the case of the common application, the application will open on August 1st. So beginning August 1st of 2021, you will be able to complete the application to begin in the fall of 2022. Deadlines, though, differ from institution to institution. They could be as early as October 15 of 2021 or as late as April of 2022. So you want to make sure that the institutions that you're looking into, that you know what the deadlines are. But it's typically a year in advance, and try to submit it by this fall to begin next fall.
Well, thank you so much from the audience. I have thank you messages from the students who are watching us, and let us wait for a couple more seconds. And if we have no more questions, I just want to thank Marco for the wonderful presentation and a lot of useful information we have from the insider, let's say, of the university, who sees a lot of the application forms and really knows what's happening on the other side of the application process. Thank you, Marco. Well, I see no. Yes, we do have one more question. Can you submit a letter of recommendation from a teacher who is an extra course teacher, not school teacher?
Yes, if they can address your academic abilities, that would be fine, not a problem.
Yes, basically, I think it's everyone who can describe your academic abilities is welcome to provide letter of recommendation.
Correct.
So thank you so much, Marcus. So it's almost it's almost an hour. We are having the webinar, and thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you everyone for listening, for watching Education USA. And I just want to say goodbye, everybody. Have a nice rest of the day to everyone, and see you next week.